Okay, I'm going to swear in everyone at once. If you'd like to stand up and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I'll say aye and then state your name. I,
Charles Myers,
having been appointed to the office of Commissioner of Planning and Zoning Commission
to the office of Commissioner of Planning and Zoning Commission
and Chairman
and Chairman
in the village of East Dundee,
in the village of East Dundee,
in the county of Kane,
in the county of Kane,
state of Illinois,
state of Illinois,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
I will support the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Commissioner
of the office of Commissioner and Chairperson
of the Planning and Zoning Commission to the best of my ability.
of the Planning and Zoning Commission to the best of my ability.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
All right. I, Charles Myers, am going to start this, and I'm going to call this meeting to order on Thursday, April 7th, 2022, at 6:01 p.m. It's the Planning and Zoning and Historic Commission agenda.
Point of order. Can I make a motion to remove from the agenda the swearing in of the newly appointed commissioners? As you already took
Yeah,
the
we'll just
oath.
strike it.
Erica told me that it should be removed, stricken from the agenda.
Sure, because we're starting that now, so no need to do it again.
Correct.
All right. Do we need to vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
I second it.
All right, camera runner seconds.
Okay.
You should then probably say any further discussion in case any member has anything they want to discuss about.
All right, thank you. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none?
No. Braher? Here. Brunner?
Yes.
Beck? Here. Kruger? Here. Stenick?
Yes.
Scarpelli?
Yes.
And Myers.
Present.
Now the roll call.
All right, so a roll call. Declaration of quorum.
Okay. Braher?
Here.
Brunner?
Here.
Oh, Braher?
Yeah.
Braher? Oh, Braher. Sorry.
Yes.
Beck? Here. Kruger? Here. Stenick?
Yes.
Scarpelli?
Here.
And Myers.
Present. So we were voting on the last one, not
Yes.
taking.
Correct.
Okay. But nobody's different, so. All right, so we're gonna go up to let anybody from the public, do you have any comments? You can stand up.
No, do the minutes first.
Minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, approval of the minutes. All right. So Planning and Zoning and Historic Commission meeting minutes dated December 2nd, 2021. So I need somebody to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the zoning and historic commission meeting minutes dated December 2nd, 2021. And let me add for all of the new commissioners here, even though you were not present at that meeting, you can still vote on this. You don't have to be present at the meeting in order to vote on the minutes.
All right.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any question with the minutes that were written up?
All right, hearing none. Move on.
Hearing none, roll call.
And then roll.
Yeah, and then
So this is
capital.
a vote now.
Correct. Vote on the approval of the meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So a roll call.
Braher? Yes. Brunner?
Yes.
Beck? Yes. Kruger? Yes. Stenick?
Yes.
Scarpelli?
Yes.
And Myers.
Yes. All right, moving on. You're now going to invite the public. If anybody has anything to say, we welcome you to come up. Seeing none. All right. Historic Commission. Frank?
Just ask if there's any, ask staff, there's nothing on the agenda, just ask them if they have anything to add.
Okay.
If not, then you move on.
No, I don't.
All right, nothing to add, thanks. Okay, so new business. So we're considering a request for a text amendment to Chapter 157, Section 157, you guys can read that. So we're making a amendment to the firearm coating, finishing, and adding accessories and general modifications or accessory to gun shop. So we're gonna move this to a special use in the B3 business district. From what I read, this is GAT guns applying to change your guys' code, or you guys wanna further do more things there, or thank you, if you could.
Exactly.
I appreciate that.
One
Hold
moment. We have to
on
open the public hearing.
Charlie, when it says public hearing, what you need to do is you need to ask the floor to create a motion
Okay,
to open the public hearing. Because anytime we're gonna change a ordinance or a law, or anytime somebody's asking for, we're gonna have another public hearing when they come to ask for their special use. But this particular piece of business here is actually the village looking to change its ordinance. So we may ask the applicant for something, but it's really more for us to talk about changing our ordinances to allow this special use to occur.
Sure.
So the action here would be to ask to open the public hearing.
all right. So to further advise the board on what we're voting on, we'd like to open it up to a public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing to consider a request for a text amendment to chapter 157, section 157.050, section F, section 1, section M, section 3, to add firearms coating, refinishing, adding accessories and general modifications, semicolon, accessories to gun shop, end parentheses, as a special use in the B3 business district.
I'll
Thank
second.
you for a second.
So can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, now, just,
So, all in favor?
you would ask Catherine to take roll.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, will you take roll?
Okay. All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Any against?
Hearing none?
Now, one of two things that you should do would be to ask anybody that may speak on this to have Catherine administer an oath to them.
Okay. So seeing that there's somebody that would like to speak on this, will you administer an oath?
Yeah, we could do this for you.
Randy and I would both like to be together.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thanks. Floor is yours.
Okay, and, now, I mean, again, Charlie, when you get used to this, excuse me,
No, I understand.
This is their career meeting.
I-
Typically, I mean, my style was that since this is the village coming to us, asking us to amend its own ordinances, would be to ask somebody from staff to present the reasons why. If you need more information beyond that, or any of us request more information beyond that, then we would ask the applicant to speak to it.
Okay.
But again, this first plan of action is the village looking to change our ordinances
Yes.
to accommodate the applicant, but the applicant's hearing is actually next when they come and if we create the special use. If we don't create the special use, then the second part's not needed. But I
Sure.
suspect we're gonna create the special use.
I would expect that as well. So we'll ask the village to
So,
maybe
yeah,
inform us of what we're voting on.
In our memorandum that you received, there's notes in here about the action that we're requesting and the reasons for that. So simply, the ATF has, they haven't modified their guidelines, but they're actually enforcing their guidelines now.
Right.
Is what we're being told. So, because of that, modifying firearms under their guidelines is considered manufacturing.
Right.
The village doesn't allow manufacturing per se in the B3, it has to be an M1 or an M12 zoning. So they already have an existing special use with the village for other items that were listed in here. And so this would be amending our code to allow those specific things to be added to firearms, modify them, whether it's finishing,
Sure.
adding accessories
Adding
or whatever.
accessories.
And then we can go to the ATF and say, yes, they are allowed to do these specific things, and then they'll be able to renew their license and
Right.
continue business as usual.
And this is what you guys have been doing for a number of years. You guys are just tightening things up.
We are,
Maybe we should wait until,
No,
we should, oh, he's allowed to now? All right.
Okay.
And he's sworn in.
I'm gonna sit
So if now is the appropriate time, what it
Yeah.
amounts to is we won't be changing any business practices at all.
Right.
Nothing will be visible inside or outside that's gonna change. We're simply checking a different box on our license in order to be in compliance and good standing with the ATF.
Right. That makes sense. So I wouldn't think that there's any questions from the board, so we can move forward with.
but
I got a question.
Okay.
I was reading about the signage that you want, does that go with this whole thing too?
I think that's a different,
Schematics?
that's
Or it's
still,
just two different things?
I believe that's a different business.
Okay, I was just checking.
Yep,
Okay,
that's still the same for.
Yes, it's a different business, it's applied.
okay, thank you.
Right, yeah, this is Cat Guns.
I have a question. So currently, you are doing the gunsmithing and
like we have
gas,
for years,
and
yes.
you'll be doing the same thing in the future? Okay.
The actual process that subjects us to the manufacturing license for ATF is we are refinishing firearms.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
And because you changed the color from blue to pink,
Right.
that's a modification that now, I have to have what they call a southern license. And all we're doing is complying with ATF. ATF makes these calls all the time, and we really didn't expect to go through this. It was just a notification of ATF saying, hey, East Dundee, they're going from this to this, is that okay? Not that, you know, we're coming in and it's not me saying to you this, it's ATF who is regulating every dot, every T, every, you know,
Probably not more than ever.
Yes.
Right,
So,
yeah.
so Chris, you put in here like 2 conditions on your recommendation.
Correct.
So I guess I'd be curious, one of the conditions is that no more than 25% of your business would be tied to this specific activity, is that in?
yeah, we didn't agree to that.
Yes, okay, so how much of your business right now is tied to this activity?
Far less than 10%.
Yeah.
Far less than 10%.
Okay.
But I don't want to be tied to anything like this. And here's the reason. We don't know what the laws are. Can I stand up?
Sure.
Oh,
I think you.
no, Frank says sit down.
Point of order, I believe, and this is what you have to kind of build and recognize, is that the conditions are actually set forth in their special use. We're currently in the public hearing for only the village portion.
Okay.
The questioning of the conditions is more for just the special use. So we're creating or amending the village's code of ordinances just to allow this as a special use.
Yes.
And that's all we're doing in this first public hearing. The second public hearing that we go into tonight will be then specifically for the applicant's request to have a special use. And with special uses, it's typical that there are conditions set forth. Otherwise, if you don't set forth any conditions, why have it as a special use?
Right. And these 2 conditions is what we're about.
But again, those 2 conditions fall into the second public hearing that we're going to have tonight.
Okay.
So not to cut you off and just to try and educate, and hopefully after tonight's meeting, I know that Monday night, near the conclusion of the board meeting, they had discussed that Erica and staff are going to get you guys all some training, hopefully with the village attorney and or staff members, to understand a little bit more the concepts of public hearings, variances, special uses, things of that nature. So I believe at this point, if nobody else has any questions for the village on why we're gonna create the allowance of a special use.
Okay.
And is everyone clear on that? I mean, if you're not, this is the time to ask.
The one thing would be, wouldn't it be possible for us to codify those conditions in this first part and not have it be part of the special use?
I guess you probably could. Here's the only thing is that every applicant coming forth in the B3 for that would then have to have that condition.
Yes, which that was what I was expecting
Okay.
us to do, actually, so that we wouldn't have major just refinishing businesses in town. That this would be a.
I mean, that aspect was not staff's
Okay.
recommendation, or because you typically have special uses, and then subject to that, you may set up more guidelines for, you may set up opening and closing times, you may set up different hours of business, so that's separate of what the actual ordinance is, what we're trying to amend. So we'd like to just amend it the way the language was presented, and then if you choose to do or recommend any type of restrictions above and beyond that, we can do that.
Okay, great, thank you. But, I mean, we could set forth additional conditions for any special use. We would vote on it here, and then at the next village board meeting, our recommendation, however it's crafted, would go to the village board, and then they either codify it or they amend it and then pass it or don't pass it. So Charlie, at this time,
You would end the villages.
no, you would ask for a motion to close the public hearing, because everything that we've talked about so far is in this public hearing that we opened and discussed, allowing the village or having the village amend its code of ordinances.
Okay.
So ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion it.
Thank you so much. Do we need a second?
You need a second?
I second it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and now you ask Catherine, well, you need to say, are there any additional questions or comments
From the board.
from the board? And if there
This
are
is
none,
only this, and that's it, and then we go to the next.
if there are none, then you ask Catherine to call the roll.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? All right, hearing none, we move forward.
All in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
Any against?
Now,
Now you need to ask somebody to make a motion to approve the text amendment to chapter 157, section 157.050, F1M3, to add firearms coating, refinishing, adding accessories and general modifications, accessories to gun shop as a special use in the Business 3 district. I so move that motion.
thank you, Commissioner.
Now you need a second.
Second.
Now you need to ask if there's any questions or comments.
Is there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may we move forward?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Brahar?
I'm sorry, no questions.
Oh.
We have to vote yes.
Oh, yes, sorry,
Yes?
yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Beck?
Yes.
Kruger?
Yes.
Stenick?
Yes.
Scarpelli?
Yes.
And Myers?
Yes.
Chris or Catherine, on this, there's no finding of fact, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Charlie, now move to the second item on the agenda.
Okay, second item on the agenda. Then the final one. Third. Okay, so I'm going on. So we're opening up public hearing, that's the second item on the agenda.
Right, so you need to ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for a motion to open up the public hearing.
Open.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody, whether it's, either you can read
Mm-hmm.
the entire public hearing verbiage and ask for a motion, and somebody can say so moved, or you can ask for to open the public hearing, and then whomever makes the motion should read.
Okay, can I take it back?
So I'll read this, so I can read this asking to open it up.
And then they can just say so moved,
Okay,
or you can just ask for a motion, and then when they make the motion, they should read everything that's in blue into the record as to why we're opening the public
Me too.
hearing.
I feel good.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
so I'm going to ask to open up the public hearing to consider a request for a special use, chapter 157, section 157.050. Is that subsection or? Section F, section 1, section M, section 3, firearm coating, refinishing, adding accessories, and general modifications, accessory to gun shop.
Now, somebody can
So
so move.
Move.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Now ask for a second.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye. So then go ahead and just read this.
You can read that, or you could ask anybody that's got plans to give testimony here to be sworn in. Even though we swore them in the last public hearing, we closed that public hearing. This is now a new public hearing, so we need to re-swear in anybody that plans on presenting testimony to the board.
Okay, does anybody from the board plan to ask any questions?
Not from the board, from the audience, whether it's the applicant or anybody that is either here in favor or opposed to the request should be sworn in by Catherine.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask Catherine to go ahead and swear in.
Anyone speaking again?
Just leave it up for questions from the board, but to him.
That can take place in the public
Do you
hearing.
swear to tell
as well
the
as
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
All right.
This isn't a public hearing.
No, we just opened up a second public hearing, so we're in the public hearing. They've just been sworn in, so now you can ask the applicant if they would like to present anything regarding their application.
I appreciate your patience right now. Would you like to speak? And then could you introduce yourself too? I know I've seen you before, and I would assume that you're the owner.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Hi. I'm the owner, Gregory Trapino. This is my general manager, Randy Potter. And my wife, Jill. Oh, yeah. I can't forget her.
Thanks for your patience.
My wife, Jill. Yes. Oh,
She obviously has
Okay.
Understandable when you're in this, yeah.
Yeah, AJ. Randy, what are you?
Sure.
So, yeah.
I guess, as much as anything, we're here to kind of answer questions, if you guys have any questions about what we're doing. To kind of give you a rundown for us on what's taken place so far. This is not kind of a new thing for us, and ATF didn't really make a request of us. Our license became due for renewal, and we decided to change it, the classification with the ATF from an 01 to an 07, which is from standard retail to manufacturing license. Which I think, in my opinion, sounds bigger than it really is for us. The things that we're doing that fall under the manufacturing umbrella for ATF, like Greg mentioned, its process is called Cerakoting. It's really spray paint, bake in the oven, and that's it. So if someone comes in and wants to buy a firearm, but they like a particular color, they want it personalized, we can make that happen. And that's all there is to it. We spray it, put it back together, and deliver it to the customer. ATF has defined that as manufacturing because it alters the value of the firearm that we're delivering to the customer. And very specifically, it matters when it is our gun, not a customer's firearm. If a customer brings a firearm to us and they want us to do the same thing, that's not considered manufacturing, that's gunsmithing, which falls under the license we've held, Greg's held since '79. So it's a really minor paperwork thing for us. That's kind of where we've come to. And frankly, we didn't know that ATF would even reach out to the village when we applied for the change in the license, but it's a matter of protocol for them to do that. Or we would have reached out to the village first to let you guys know that there would be a call coming or an email coming. I don't know how the agent reached out, but because it's a very minor thing for us in our view of what we're doing, because we're doing the same thing we've been doing for a long time. There's no intention to manufacture, there's no intention for us to bring in machinery and start milling parts out and create anything. We're not going to create a new brand of gat guns, firearms, or anything like that. You know, I know like our guns, for example, if you're familiar with them, they're a manufacturer and they actually build firearms with their names and their serial numbers and everybody, you know, that's their business. We don't have any desire to do anything like that at all. We're strictly doing this for the sake of compliance and meeting the standard of the ATF. Trying to think of what else is kind of relevant. It's a, you know, we were talking to one of our employees and found out that he has an FFL and it's a Class 7 manufacturing. ATF called the village where he lives in his home and they called him and he said, yeah, that's what I applied for. And they said, okay, and that's it. And it's literally, all the ATF wants is an email that says, okay. Just an email from anybody that comes from a village thing that says, okay.
That was in Parkwood.
So it's not necessarily a matter of us, we aren't seeking to change zoning or codification with the village or anything like that. Business is good, our relationship seems strong, we think we have a good relationship with the village after all these years, so we're just trying to fill the paperwork out.
Thank you for doing that.
Can I ask if the refinishing process includes gluing or any chrome finishing, or is that sent out?
We send out for those particular finishes because they take up a big piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably include that.
Right, chemical baths, exactly.
Yeah, okay. If it happens again. Well,
I guess, Jeff,
Yeah.
I don't want to take Charlie's job, but do you plan on saying anything else? Because you should swear in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Even though you're the
Ask
village
a question.
president, you
No,
should.
no, that's fine.
Okay.
I have no other questions. I just, sorry.
of course.
I'll sit back down.
No.
Randy kind of hit it, you know, right. All it is it's just compliance. ATF is becoming so much more stringent across the U.S. that, you know, people building ghost guns and stuff like that, you know, it's dealers like us that they come to help. And I know a lot of people, but we are kind of the cornerstone for retail with ATF. They've even brought agents in, I wasn't going to say this, they even brought agents in to show them what a shop should run like. Because we are so, you know, we really try to set the bar high and to do what we need. And we're always worried about little verbiage that can be taken out of context. Or it says that the manufacturer or whatever. What do you consider manufacturing? If a person brings in his dad's gun from World War II and took it apart and can't put it back together, reassembling that, or I have to order a part for it, is that getting an outside part, putting it in the gun, and then giving it back to the guy? I guess all I'm just trying to say is, like Randy said, I feel that we have a very good relation with the board, but I've also seen boards that have turned like this, and I just don't want to get caught up in something like that. And that's,
I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are doing the right thing,
Yeah.
kind of getting ahead of it before it becomes an issue.
yes, exactly.
That's how I see it anyways.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your guys' patience tonight because this is a brand new board.
It was my first board meeting too. It's a learning experience, so
Nice. Well, whatever the staff says.
So for either one of you, the staff has given us a couple conditions. Are you aware of the conditions?
We just got it, and we're aware.
Okay. I guess, Chris, if you can answer this, is based on the explanation that they just gave, that this new special use is only going to apply to guns that they sell, that somebody is looking to have modified, is, if you've got a gun, say it's $500, and the modification is $100, are you gonna show the sale as $600, or are you gonna show it as $500 and $100? Because I just wonder, how would the village ever tabulate the portion of their sales that applies to the manufacturing and to the thing? If you just show the sale as a $600 sale, I don't know that we'd ever be able to, I mean, just when I put on my accounting hat and think how you'd ever determine that, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know, because we're not gonna have get records of what
Right,
they're
and that's why
specifically.
ATF, all they wanted was, okay,
Yeah,
they didn't ask for, any notary or anything else. The senior agent that made the call or inquired, we don't know. All they're looking for is, even though I may be the greatest guy on earth, they gotta follow protocol and to tell somebody that they're doing something. And that was the reason why.
Well,
So,
if you buy a gun, I feel like it's, and if you want to have it modified to color or something like we said, then that's the whole sale of the gun, and that's it.
right.
As far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
that's all I say.
I mean,
So then therefore, from my understanding, if I already own a gun and I bring it to you and ask you to make these modifications, you've already been able to do that, that doesn't apply to this new law.
exactly.
Okay, so, I mean, from my perspective, if I make the motion, I'm gonna suggest that we enter what the staff has asked. You are going to then present before the village board after our recommendation is made. And that would be the time between now and that meeting for you to get together with staff to talk about that the accounting of this is gonna be next to impossible. I mean, you guys will dictate, depending on if you sell the gun for $600 or if you sell it for $500 and show, do you have to for the state purpose? Do you have to show them how much of your sale is?
But here's where it comes in tricky. If a manufacturer ships a gun with a scope, a rifle and a scope, and they're separate.
Right.
Say, I put the scope on, I'm not increasing my sale at all. I'm just putting the scope on the gun.
Uh-huh,
I better have that 07 license.
right.
That's how picky they're getting.
Okay, yeah, and I guess what I'm reading with it, staff has asked for these findings of fact recommendation, or the recommendations for granting you the special use. Is they're just saying that this work that you do that pertains to this particular state requirement and special use can't exceed 25% of your total sales. So you would take all your ammunition sales and everything, and I would think you'd have a hard time exceeding 25%.
I agree, but I don't know what's coming down the road. And if ATF says, from now on, I'm gonna ship you the slide and the frame separate. When you get the gun, you have to assemble it and then give it to whoever.
Yeah.
Then it comes up down to is that we told you, you can't manufacture. And now you're assembling this gun. Now I'm back in the trick bag. I've been, with the village for such a long time, I don't think they've ever had a complaint about. I guess I value my neighbors and the village, and I try to do everything I can and always have tried to do, whether it's keeping the place clean or respectable or whatever, I go above and beyond. And all I want to do is not get caught in that one word that is where it's going to pull a rug out from underneath me, or that type of thing.
Chris, do you know how the 25% came about?
I don't.
Okay.
So do we know who
Yeah.
suggested that?
Well, Erica had added that language.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so the way that I'm hearing it is obviously the scopes, assembling things that are coming all kind of together that you just made as a final product. I don't even see that counting as part of the 25%. What I think, in my mind, the whole purpose would be like, is if you guys decided to make like a mega gun customization business where you're doing all sorts of crazy paints and that became a huge part, that obviously would change your relationship with your neighbors if you're establishing a factory doing
Yeah.
that.
Right.
And we don't want you to do that,
Correct.
but, you know, it doesn't sound like that's at all what you guys are planning.
No, that's,
This is what I think the purpose of it is. It's that not you guys transform into this totally different thing.
I think, if I made the condition one, the amount of being, the custom work being 25%, obviously, we're just doing what we do, so, you know, conditions being what they may, I don't know. We're just doing the same thing we're doing, so now a new condition is being presented to us. So it's it's just uncomfortable to say, okay, now just be aware of this. Here's a new rule. Condition 2, though, that's on here is the applicant shall not source parts and assemble firearms from scratch. That sentence is extremely broad and extremely vague. That one is much more concerning because that can be taken a lot of ways. The difference between a part and a firearm can be very, very fine line, which I'm happy to discuss with anyone, and Greg is too. But that is, I mean, that is something that could occur.
well, we outsource everything.
I think that,
We don't manufacture.
Right.
We have to outsource.
so, but one thing that I think that is important for everybody, and we want everybody to know as far as our position in the village is that, like, the big news in the last week has been ghost guns. Guns that are 3D printed and guns that are shipped incomplete and then completed and then no paperwork's done and they're untraceable. And we've had no part of that business. We've never wanted to have any part of that business, legal as it may be and profitable as it may be. It's simply a thing that we don't do because of our position in the community, our position in the industry, and our position with ATF, our relationships, and our good standing. The best example I can think of that would sound familiar is like bump stocks. Bump stocks became famous after Las Vegas, after the nut job shot up the Music Fest. We've never sold one of those. They were legal for probably 10 or 12 years, and they were extremely profitable. And after that, like it was, we don't just bear it down on the bottom line. So, on the bottom dollar. So it's
Important for you to know, we're not going there.
that's where we come from, and that's the business we try to conduct, that Greg heads the ship for us to do. But condition 2 is something that could be a hitch for us, so that one's more of a concern, I think, than condition 1.
Yeah, I agree, because 25%, it's like holding back your sales, and you're selling guns, they're not cheap. So I don't know what the big deal is to 25%, you know, I don't think we should have it in there personally, but that's.
Well, it's kind of vague and kind of off the wall.
Yes, it
And that's why whoever wrote this, we're willing to sit down here and talk about it, or any, you know, to try to understand what their concerns are,
Exactly.
you know, and
From
I'm
what I-
available.
From what I gather, this isn't necessarily the place to try to discuss it or make the change, but I just want to make sure that you folks all know where we're going.
And we don't have to vote on implying.
Well, so after we close the public hearing, and the other thing for all the new commissioners is, in a public hearing, you should never really speak how you feel about their request. It's more about just trying to assemble information about the special use and about the request. After we close the public hearing, then we can speak amongst ourselves as to either whether we have personal feelings about it and that, and then there's also certain rules in that apply to something we should never concern ourselves with. We're concerned more about the land use and how it will impact the surrounding neighbors.
Right.
The planning and zoning should never take financial reasons to the village or to the applicant into account. That's strictly for Sarah and Jeff and the village board, because everything that happens here goes to them except the historic commission. In the historic commission, we grant certificates of appropriateness. That comes from us, and they don't take that to the village board. So we are the final say for the historic commission. But These folks are not in the historic district, so probably shouldn't have said all this within the public hearing. But anyway, so yeah, so after we close the public hearing and get into a discussion amongst ourselves on what we feel comfortable granting, either we could grant the motion or the request as presented with the special uses, or we could grant the request. We could add any other special considerations that we would like to see.
Right.
A lot of times in other special uses, you might want some additional screening. They're not doing anything outside, but if they were doing it outside, you might be cognizant of a neighbor. So you might ask them to put either an opaque fence or some opaque bushes or something to hide this from the neighbor. So we could add any additional special considerations that we feel we would like to see. Or we don't even have to accept the ones staff gave.
Right.
I personally feel, my personal feelings, well, I shouldn't talk about my personal feelings till after we close the
So since we're still in public, if I may.
Right, so
So what do we do?
what you should probably is ask the applicant if they have anything else to add. If not, then ask the board if they have anything else in the public hearing. If there's none for both sides, then take a motion to close the public hearing, and then we can open up discussion about the request amongst ourselves.
So before closing the public hearing, I'd like you guys, I'm just gonna summarize here from what I understand that everything's going on, and then, the board, if you guys have any other questions, they're still able to answer them before we close it. So, you guys literally wrote, nothing will change in how we conduct business. It seems that that's how that's gonna go. You guys have been refinishing firearms for a number of years, if not, for a very long time, as long as you've been capable of doing that. Somebody say that I have an old gun, I want it refinished, I can bring that gun in there. You guys are still able to do that. I would assume that we feel comfortable doing that because that's how the business has been being conducted. I know that we're in public hearing, but I'm learning as I'm going here. So, Catherine, sorry, I almost called you Christine. Commissioner Scarpelli told me that the village would send out anybody within 250 feet who resides within that area, a questionnaire if they would be okay with this or the percentage with what we were doing.
Well, essentially a notice that, so on their property, a sign got placed that there was going to be a public hearing.
Yep.
People could contact the village to find out what it was. Also, the requirement is that a notification be mailed out to everyone within 250 feet. Some years ago, the applicant had to handle that, and they had to bring in certified receipts showing that the people were actually mailed a certificate. The village has taken that mailing on, assuring us that they have mailed to everyone, therefore that it doesn't have to be done by certified mail, but you can just verify with staff that they did in fact send out the mailing.
So verifying that we've done that.
Yeah, the sign was placed on the property, the notices were sent out to every property owner within 250 feet, and then there's also a publication in the newspaper about this hearing.
So we very much got the word out there, and we didn't have any negative issues or comments.
No comments whatsoever.
Cool. And just because I feel like I should, you guys never have and don't plan on manufacturing uppers, lowers, all that stuff to what a neighboring business does. You guys have never done that. You don't plan on doing that. You guys are just getting ahead of the game and making sure that you won't fall into a trick bag, as you said later. So if the board doesn't have any other questions, I'm going to advise to close the public session.
It's for a motion to close the public.
Can I have a motion?
Have a
Thank you.
second.
Thank you.
First. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, now you can open it up for discussion. I mean, it's your call whether you ask each individual commissioner if they have any comment, or you should just open it up popcorn style.
Sure. I don't see any, but I still will, because the board kind of need to discuss amongst ourselves.
I think it's just what we want to say in regards to the
Yes.
conditions.
Sure, and this isn't a private session or anything like that. Everybody's more than willing to listen.
They're willing to listen. technically, they're not supposed to give us any additional comment,
Oh, it's-
but if sometimes questions do come up that only they can ask, or they can answer rather, so.
Do we need to make a motion to discuss it amongst
No,
ourselves?
no,
Okay.
so you're, essentially, you're, as the chairman, just opening up the floor
Okay.
to comments, questions, concerns of the board, or for the additional limitations or requests by staff.
And these two conditions.
The conditions.
So I'm just gonna go through the motion so I can learn
Sure.
on my behalf. Thank you for the board for understanding. So I'd like to open up so that we can discuss amongst ourselves, and then hit on these two conditions if we see that these are fit. So yes.
Yeah, so Chris, so was the second condition as well from Erica, or was it from someone else?
Yeah.
Yes, the village administrator
Did both.
recommended both conditions.
So I guess for me, looking at these two conditions, I think they're put in there to kind of reinforce what they're already doing.
Right.
We're trying to bound, we put in maybe a general thing into our code, and we kind of want to bound what we're approving in the variance or in special use to fit what they plan on doing. Now, maybe these two things aren't the perfect two things to bound it.
They're heading in the right direction. Though.
Yeah,
Not-
yeah.
So that we don't have a refinishing business.
Yes.
With houses, you know, because there's,
Right.
I think that's unincorporated back there, right? Or some of it is.
Oh, but behind there, yeah, it's unincorporated.
But nonetheless, you know, we still want,
Unincorporated,
yeah, that's what we're here for, is to benefit the people who live here, right?
Yes.
And we still want to
Yeah.
benefit the businesses because, of course, they've been a long-standing business. But, you know,
Right.
I understand we don't want it to be refinishing.
Yes, and if they like wanted to go, and it's like, and this, the second one is pretty vague, you know, so what are
Yeah.
parts? Are parts like raw steel that they're milling, and building guns literally from scratch?
Right.
We don't want that.
Nope.
Right? Or it would be different, we'd have to rezone it, you know, into a manufacturing area. So maybe that's what we can say with staff, you know, go and try to look at some other ways of bounding this or refining the text a little bit.
Sure.
But I think what we want to do is, you know, because they're saying what they want, and we want to believe what they're saying that they want, and let's have it fit, you know, and so that we're both, it doesn't go in a direction that either of us didn't expect.
So my question, the 25% is like, so he made, I don't know, $1 million last year, let's say. So then he makes $1 million now. So he goes over that million at 25%, what he's doing differently now. That's like, what? New revenue, and so like, return, can't go over 25%.
How I read it, so that this was given to me at the same time I was given to you. How I read it is that.
And I think, you know, if he makes money on something he's already been established doing, I don't see why there's that to be a percentage, that's just.
Sure, yeah, I agree, and then, you know, if it makes the village feel better, but at the same time, we're the ones reporting on this.
Right.
You're bumping up,
So I
that I
see
want to
more
see 50% of
definition.
their business, not that I foresee
Yes.
that happening, or they probably
Yeah.
don't either, but then we can.
Just a little more detail on that 25%.
Yeah,
right.
Like what they did sales last year, or what they do sales every year, or what?
Well, and I think too, they raised some points how it's a little complicated, like, you know,
Yeah.
I think when I first read it, it was, you know, making material changes to guys like the repainting, you know, they brought in the concept of just assembling things, and like, to me, that'd be like zero of that would go to this,
Right.
even though it's part of the required use. So me, it would literally be like the value adds that they're doing, the customization, the true customization where they're applying modification, not necessarily attaching something. No, modification being like a paint job,
Right,
really.
right.
So like 25% on paint jobs, I think would be a lot of paint jobs.
Yes. Gotcha.
But, you know,
Okay,
but that would be the thing, like if they actually set up a thing to do $1 million worth of paint jobs a year,
yeah,
that also would be a big facility.
right, exactly.
Anyway, well, once again, it's all the bounding,
Right,
you know.
all right. Any further discussion?
No.
So now I'll close this, and then we can make a motion to.
It's really not an open thing or a closed thing, so if there's no further discussion, then you could ask someone to make a motion.
I can't, or,
What, yeah, I mean, you would ask, would somebody like to make a motion to either approve or deny the special use And then when they read whether they're approving or denying, they would then list whether the conditions are part of it or not part of it.
Okay, but I can as well. I can make a motion to approve and then ask. for a second.
Typically, the chairperson should not make the motion.
Okay.
You could read it off such, again, like I said before, such that somebody could just say so moved.
Sure.
But really, your position as chair is just to call amongst the commissioners to make the motions.
All right. And that would be either, they would have to make a motion to approve, not approve or deny, because we're voting yea or nay on either approving or denying. So it's with-
Yeah, I mean, somebody could make, if it was something that somebody absolutely didn't want, they could make a motion in the negative, to not approve
Okay.
special use.
So I'm gonna ask it.
Those type of motions get difficult, because if you make a motion to not approve, then you have to vote yeah. If you want that to happen, you have to say yes to not approve.
Right.
Which makes
I gotta help her.
it makes the motion very, very difficult.
Sure.
Holy shoot.
For sure. All right, so would any of the board members like to make a motion to approve or deny a special use chapter 157, section 157.050, subsection F, subsection 1, subsection M, subsection 3, firearm coating, refinishing, adding accessories and general modifications, accessory gun shop?
I'll make that motion subject to the conditions provided by staff, with the understanding, though, that Chris and staff get together with Erica and get together with the applicants to go through those conditions. And again, just so, that's my motion. Let me further explain that
Definitions.
Sarah and Jeff and the rest of the village board are going to hear all of this as well. And even if we all said absolutely not, we don't want this, they can say yes. And what we said here, we are just a recommendation for it. The one purpose we do serve that they don't have is they won't have to have another public hearing.
Right.
So the public hearing was here tonight, and all of those findings of facts and everything are part of that public hearing. The village board does not have to have that. The applicants will come before the village board, they will present their case, and hopefully between now and, you guys aren't having a special meeting next Monday, are you? The 18th. So between now and the 18th, the applicants will need to get together with Erica and/or maybe the police chief or whomever to discuss these special requests, the special conditions. So even though my motion, and you guys could say, Frank, we don't like your motion, and either not second it
Right.
or vote it down, in which case then we have to make another motion.
Okay, second it, but if we second it, then they'll go over the details, those two details with them and specify more why they're going that way, and so I'll second it.
Thank you.
Frank, was it to approve?
It was to approve, yes.
Definitions.
So then we go through, we'd ask Catherine to.
So now you have a motion, you have a second. You should ask anybody here, I mean, somebody may say, you know what, Frank, I really don't feel comfortable putting those special conditions on. Would you consider removing them? Or whatever. And again, my motion was seconded, but everyone could sit around and stalemate and say we're not going to give a second, so that my motion dies for the lack of a second.
So if we motion that, and then they still would have to talk to them about the definition.
Yes.
And then they still, in the end, are the ones that say yes or no.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I would like to have these conditions removed, even though that the board is going to have the final say. I think it's setting them up more for success, because they're still going to be able to alter it in the long run. It seems like it'd be getting a little nitpicky there, and I just rather than discuss it, rather than even having these on there for the future. So would you consider making a motion to approve or deny the special use chapter without the conditions?
I guess what I'd like to do is I'd like to just get everybody to comment on it, and if the majority feels comfortable not having the conditions, then I'll amend my motion. But to me, staff came forward with this, they're creating the additional special use provision that the applicant, well, the state is making the applicant request from us, and they must have some reason. And to me, there's ample time for them to get together with staff to figure it out. And again, the village board can say, Frank, you're crazy, we don't like your ideas, and we're approving the thing without that. But I mean, if you want to start from Steve coming this way and just, I'd like to know, I mean, if this motion's going to die because there's not the majority of this board that supports the conditions, then I'll amend the motion.
Oh, sure thing. Okay, so we'll just go from one end to the other?
Yeah.
We can say yea or nay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the conditions that are put in there, we can fine tune those, you know, with the village board, so I'm for as proposed by Frank.
Okay,
I second that.
so 2 A's, I'm gonna say nay on that.
I don't think we have the context for the conditions.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably the challenge is that, we don't quite know why they're there. So I think we need to, know more about that. So I'm going to
Okay.
And I made the motion by A, so I'm a yea.
I'm an A.
Nay, A.
Frank.
Okay.
Got it.
With Frank on
I can change my mind, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I think, but in the end, it doesn't, the board's gonna make an announcement, so.
Yeah, sure. So you're gonna say A? Yeah. All right, so then,
It's 5-2, so I'm going to leave my motion as presented.
good deal.
Okay? But anyone else could still comment. I mean, if anyone else has any additional comments, if not, you can ask Catherine to take the roll.
Catherine, would you take the roll?
Braher? Yes. Brunner?
Yes.
Beck? I'm going to go with yes. Kruger?
Yes.
Stenick?
Yes.
Scarpelli?
Yes.
And Myers?
No. Okay,
Okay.
now we can move on.
Well, I mean, we're done with the applicants. Thank you very
Thank
much.
God.
But now, anytime we grant a variance, whether we grant the variance or deny the variance, or grant the special use or deny it, there are what is called findings of fact.
Okay.
The findings of fact were in our packet, and those are the basic findings of fact. Based on our actions here tonight, we may want to add some additional findings of fact. Excuse me, your name?
Maureen.
Maureen brought up that she doesn't feel we had the correct criteria to determine the conditions.
Right.
So we could add that to the findings of fact, or you could leave it out. So we need to pass the findings of fact. It could be done at our next meeting, but we've gotten into the practice in the last, I want to say 5 or 6 years of just approving the findings of fact right here at the meeting because we have them. They used to have the attorney actually craft them based on what was said here, but I think that the practice that we've been in for the last, I think it's been 6 or 7 years, is a good practice. So in the packet,
I don't see the findings of fact in my packet, unless if it's after their questionnaire that they have to fill out.
Yes.
Very
It
nice
is.
page.
yeah, so it's on page 18 of 19. It just says Village of East Dundee, Illinois, findings of fact hyphen special use. And then if you just kind of read through, staff has got this pre-printed form, and then just like number 1, the special use will not be injurious. The proposed use is consistent with the existing use.
Sure.
And those various things. Again, we could add any additional findings of fact if there was something that we felt compelled to add.
Looking at these, they seem pretty cut and dry and not even applicable. You know,
Right. So what you would do, Charlie, is then you would ask if somebody would make a motion to approve the findings of fact as presented.
Okay, is anybody on the board interested in making a motion to approve the findings of fact
As presented.
as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much.
I'll second.
Thank you, Frank.
And you should say there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
And is there any further discussion?
Hearing none, Catherine, call the roll.
Thank you.
Brahar,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Beck,
Yes.
Hooper,
Yes.
Stenick,
Yes.
Scarpelli,
Yes.
and Myers.
Yes. Now we're moving forward.
What?
Now we're moving forward. And the Gat guns
Can go.
amending is, they are free to go, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, they were free to go after we.
Thank you so much for being patient.
We're not officially closed.
Right, now,
Just want to say one thing.
you could, oh,
Just wanted to say one thing. Over my years in being in business, when I started in the gun business in 1969, it used to be that if a cop came in and he showed his credentials, he could take the gun the same day. Now, I don't care if the sergeant of East Dundee comes in and says, I want a gun. Do you know that I have to call the state police to see if I got permission? Even if he's in uniform. So, this is what I'm trying to tell you, is that in my lifetime, I've seen so many laws change. That's why we're trying to get ahead of this, but that's why we're so gun shy
yeah.
of these type of things that are put in. And I'm just trying to say is that even if I know he's been on the force here for 30 years, as long as I've been here, I can't do it unless I get an approval from the state police. So I just want you to understand, you know, the reason why.
And just so you can understand, you can always come back and ask to widen the scope. Once we grant you the special use with this wide scope, if we come to you to narrow that scope, that's essentially condemning your business. And then you could file a lawsuit against the village, and they would have to pay you money for the condemning or the restricting of your business. So that's why special uses oftentimes have restrictions in them, such that you can always ask for a second bite of the apple, whereas the village really can't, unless the state comes in, like you've seen, and they restrict it.
Well, just like I said,
Yeah.
ATF controls me, the state of Illinois controls
The
me.
village.
Everybody's got a hand on my chain.
Right.
Right.
And the other thing, again, we're not for our consideration, I used to be a trustee 20 years ago in the village, is that the village does not want to lose your sales tax revenue. That's huge to them, so you're always going to have a front seat at their table.
Well, all I meant was is that I just wanted you to understand the reason and why we are shy about certain things, because I've seen things, you know, where, and that's the reason why. So I thank you and let me stand up this time.
Thank you for being so patient.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, take care. Thank you.
So, Charlie, at this time now, you could, I mean, because we're close to the adjournment, or the end of the meeting, it's just if any of the commissioners have anything to say or any comments or whatever about either what took place or things that you would like to see happen, and then if there's none of that, kind of the way the village board, they each go through their reports. That's not a section on here, but oftentimes commissioners see things that they would like Chris or staff to take back to the staff or to the board. And then if there's none of that, then you can ask for a motion to adjourn.
Okay, good deal. Does the board have anything to add to that? Any comment?
Just to reiterate to definition, yes, and I would probably go with you on that. It didn't look like it was a big deal since they always do business like they always do. And I think it's good for us to make more money because we're gonna tax them. So, I mean, to me, it's not a, 25%.
Sure thing.
Not, you know what I mean? But
Right.
that's all.
All right, well, I'm going to make a motion to end or adjourn the meeting.
Ask for a motion.
Can I have a motion from one of the board
Yes.
members to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
All right, and then a second?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
And meeting ends.
gosh.
It did,